So, it has now been a full 10 years since the release of Interstellar, the massive Christopher Nolan sci-fi film that has become sort of a cult classic amidst sort of my generation. Me personally, if you've been watching my channel, if you haven't, please subscribe, turn on notifications. I make videos like this every day. But if you've been following me, you've probably heard me say or mentioned once or twice that Interstellar is my favorite movie of all time. This is a movie that I not only love because I think it's a great movie, but I love it because it's the film that sort of changed my perception of movies, changed my perception of storytelling. It's the film that taught me that movies and stories aren't just like a side distraction to go do on a Friday night and hanging out in a movie theater with friends. It was something that could be truly a remarkable experience, a transformative experience that not only was there to entertain you as a viewer, but was there to sort of change you, to teach you a lesson, right? And it's a movie that after I saw it for the first time all those years ago, a full decade ago, it stuck with me. Not just for days after seeing it, but for months and years now. It's a movie that I have now seen, I don't even know, dozens of times, and every time I have seen it, I've learned something new about it. I've either found something that I had never seen before, or just enjoyed something that I had never truly appreciated about it before. I've learned so much that I haven't gotten from that first viewing. And I've grown to somehow love the movie even more, which is why I'm so happy that in the 10-year anniversary, Christopher Nolan and Warner Brothers were nice enough to do a re-release of Interstellar this weekend. A re-release in IMAX theaters exclusively, and I was able to go see it. And now I want to talk about it. Because I had never seen Interstellar in IMAX before. I had seen it in theaters when it first came out in a regular movie theater. I saw it a couple times, and of course I've seen it at home a billion times. But this was getting to go see it in a massive IMAX screen with the beautiful, speakers that are just blasting the sound and the music. The theater was packed, it was sold out, and I got to experience this movie the way it was meant to be experienced. And my God, if this wasn't the best movie theater experience I've had all year. This movie is masterful. It is arguably, in my opinion, the greatest thing ever made. So what makes Interstellar so great? Why is this movie so spectacular and set itself apart even from Christopher Nolan's ridiculous filmography as is? Well, it's a couple reasons for me. First off, the actual story being told here. This is a story about a father and daughter who go on their kind of separate paths to save humanity. Humanity, let's just put it bluntly, is fucked. Humanity is stuck on Earth and Earth is dying. They can no longer grow food, so now they have to send these people out into this magical wormhole that has appeared out of nowhere to go find a new place for humanity to go, except there's a bunch of problems with that. It's impossible to get all of humanity off of the Earth. You would have to look into a black hole to figure out the data to make that happen. Also, the chances of survival for the people going into the wormhole are like zero, so there are a lot of obstacles to be overtaken here, and at the core of this massive humanity, interstellar travel, trying to save the human race, all this crazy scientific stuff, at the heart of it all is this father and daughter story with Matthew McConaughey's Coop and, of course, Jessica Chastain, who plays Murphy Cooper. There is a controversy with the name Cooper, because, it's their last name, but at one point when Matthew McConaughey's watching the videos, Casey Affleck's character's like, I wanted to name him Coop. Would his name be Coop Cooper, or did they just, for 1 second forget that Cooper was the last name? I don't know. But let's talk about that father-daughter relationship, because it's really in the performances here. Matthew McConaughey, in my opinion, this is his best performance of his career, and I think it's one of the greatest movie performances of all time, because he's able to sell a multitude of different characteristics that he really needed for this character. He's able to play this caring father, that you could buy into the fact that he might be a father who's a little bit in over his head. He's not this totally demanding parent. He's kind of this nonchalant, sort of, loose end of a parent who never got to be the man that he wanted to be. He always wanted to be this adventurous dude, but he never really got to be. Instead, he's farming and he's raising his family, and he is a good father. But there's also another side to him, this genius side, this ass-kicking, adventurous side to him, and this leadership side that he also brings out later in the film. But at its core, it's this love for his family that drives his character, and watching it performed throughout, specifically in the great scene later in the movie where Matthew McConaughey is looking at the messages of the past. Wow, that is, in my opinion, a scene that should have won him an Oscar, and it didn't somehow. Didn't even get him a nomination. Crazy. To be honest, the Oscars didn't like this movie, critics didn't like this movie, 73% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is hilarious because this movie has aged exceptionally well. It appears this movie has a following that is much larger than any other film that came out the year this came out. That's just how it is these days, I guess. That's just how the film industry works sometimes. But there are other great performances in this movie. I think Anne Hathaway gives a very controlled, very sort of emotionally dense performance here that, although it's not loud, it's not crazy, she offers so much with her character. There's one great scene where they're arguing over which planet to go to. Are they going to Miller's planet, or are they going to the other planet that has the scientist that Anne Hathaway was in love with? And she tries to make her point on why she thinks love is the one thing we can't quantify. It's the one thing we can't perceive. It goes across all dimensions. Maybe we should follow love. And seeing this in IMAX in that scene, it reminded me of how powerful of an actress she is and how she can convey just such powerful emotions with just her eyes and just the way that she's able to interpret some of the dialogue, and she's so good here. Jessica Chastain is also incredible here. Of course, she's incredible in everything she's in, but she really brings the fire with Murph. The one scene where she's informing Anne Hathaway's character that her father had died. Brilliant stuff. Matt Damon gives one of the most underrated performances of his career. I think the one scene where he's woken up and he's seeing Matthew McConaughey, he's seeing a human face for the first time in like 30 years. Can you imagine? They sell that as well as I've ever seen anything sold. You can feel the pain in Matt Damon's cry. What a beautiful scene. What a beautiful sequence, that whole thing with his planet. Yeah, Michael Caine in this thing, just on the top of his game, and then Ellen Bernstein. She shows up for one scene for like 30 seconds, but Ellen frickin' Bernstein, man, she kills it here. This movie has everything you want. It has the emotional story that is going to make you cry. It's gonna make you want to fight. Get out of your seat and fight for these characters. It wants you to root for these characters to not only survive, but to get to where they want to be. Get back home to their families. You want them to succeed, and you're just cringing every time something goes horribly wrong, and they lose time, they lose minutes. You're just fighting so desperately to see them reunite. And all that intensity is matched with some of the most suspenseful scenes in the history of cinema. The Miller's Planet scene with the giant waves that is matched with the greatest soundtrack in the history of soundtracks. Hans Zimmer not only cooked here, he just absolutely destroyed every other soundtrack in the history of cinema. There's never going to be something better than this. You have another tense scene, the docking scene, which seeing that thing in IMAX, I almost broke down in tears watching it. I think the docking scene is one of the craziest things ever put on cinema, and seeing it on an IMAX screen with the frickin' speakers blasting. Oh my god, it was so good. That's not possible, Cooper. No, it's necessary. It's a little cringy, but it's freaking brilliant, man. What a scene. And seeing it, like, I could feel the other dudes in the theater, because it was all, like, just guys like me in their 20s. We all had the same idea. Guys that grew up with this movie and think it's the best movie of all time. Yeah, we were all there, and I could feel the energy off all of them, like, this is glorious, man. I know a lot of people really get on this movie's ending. It's the one reason a lot of critics were turned off. It's because the ending does get crazy. It dives into some really sort of supernatural, really high-end scientific stuff, some stuff that doesn't make as much sense, at least practically, as a lot of the other things. But for me, the ending's always worked here. And without going too much into spoiler debts, pretty much it just gets to a point where you can't explain it. Where as an audience member, you almost have to do what the characters do, where they pretty much just say, this technology and what we're seeing is so far in the future, out of our sort of what we're able to do as a species, that we just can't really question it. Just say it's from the future and that's it. And some people think that's lazy, and they think the way that everything comes together, all the strands, is a little lazy. But I really liked the ending of this film. I've always found it to be extraordinarily powerful. The whole thing with Matthew McConaughey, don't let me leave, Murph! It works so well, and it brings a tear to my eye every time I watch it, and then everything just feels so satisfying, yet so tragic, yet so hopeful, and magical, and terrifying. And that is what another thing this movie does so well. It makes space terrifying. There's a brilliant line in the movie where they're talking about space and how they talk about it like it's nature. They talk about how we're out in nature, and yes, nature's trying to kill us. It's dangerous. It's brutal. Like, one wrong mistake and you're dead. But does that make it evil? Does that make it horrible? Like, no, it's just nature, and there's something beautiful about it, but also terrifying. There's something terrifying in the silence of space, which is something this movie captures so well. Both the loud scenes with the beautiful score from Hans Zimmer, but when you're just silently floating in space in an IMAX theater, you feel that quiet, and it is haunting. This movie is low-key kind of scary, but it just works brilliantly from start to finish, man. Seeing this movie again, yet again, it's just another reminder that this is still and will continue to be my favorite movie of all time. I can't imagine anything will top this, not just because the movie's the best made movie ever. You can make an argument against that forever, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that were born in the 70s that are like, The Godfather's the best made movie ever, and honestly, you're probably right. The reason Interstellar for me is my favorite and probably will never be beaten is because of the experience of being 13 years old and for the first time in my life, seeing something on the big screen that I could not explain to people. It made me feel things that a movie had never made me feel before, and I sat there saying the one thing I want to do is make something one day that makes people feel the way I felt watching this. It's the only thing I wanted to do, and because of that, it's the best movie I've ever seen. Nothing has matched it. So yes, Interstellar 10 years later, still a masterpiece. Go check it out. If you've never seen Interstellar, take this excuse. I think it's only playing for a couple days. Go find an IMAX screen. Go pay the $30 to go watch this. It is well worth the experience, and if you have seen it a million times, go watch it again. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more notifications. I'll see you in the next one.